So I am contracted with the district attorney as a nurse to draw blood on drunk people a few nights a month. Well, normally I do it at the jail, where there are tons of people and most of them know me. Well, since COVID they have me going out to this tiny constable's office on the lake. Lake patrol doesn't run at night. So, I sit in this building all by myself from morning to night. The first night I was there, I didn't know they had a security guard that comes and does a walk through of the building randomly at night and leaves. So here I am in a building by myself with my headphones and watching Netflix with my back to the door. Then all of a sudden the door slams shut and there is an old man in the room with me. I literally fell out of my chair scared. I work in a building that is high security. Because we have a lot of expensive equipment. If you want to get to my office, you have to walk through 4 doors that require keycard access. It's very quiet and sterile, lots of white walls, nobody around, very little furniture, gray floors, open ceiling so you can see the ducts. Sounds echo. Was working alone and noticed that there was another guy in the building. He was wearing the same shirt that maintenance wears, but it was weird because it was really late at night on a Saturday. He was also wearing jeans, and the maintenance people always wore black pants. He kind of gave me the creeps, so I closed my office door and stayed there. I could hear the echo of him walking back and forth for a while. He tried the handle on my office door twice. I heard the beep of him trying to open my office door with a keycard twice. It turns out that he didn't work there. He was the grown son of one of the workers and was walking around the building trying to steal stuff, but his dad's keycard won't open any offices because it's a handyman card with limited access. Handymen have to make appointments and you have to let them in, unlike cleaning people or the techs maintaining the servers who can open any door. He got caught on camera and security checked to see whose card had tried to open the doors. The guy got a fine for trespassing and his dad got fired. Spent a summer doing conservation work out in the absolute middle of nowhere in Wyoming. Was part of a crew that would spend 2 weeks camping in remote places to do manual labor in places machines couldn't get to. For this story, we were building new hiking/biking trails in the back portion of a designated wilderness area in a high-altitude desert. This means that the nearest civilization was a 2-hour car ride to a town of 41 people in a sandy soil area where tracks last forever. It was the middle of our stint during the early part of the night where everyone else had gone to bed, but I stayed up to read, so maybe 11:30 or so. Still pitch black outside, clouds had covered stars. So my headlamp was probably the only light on in a 40-mile radius. Suddenly I hear footsteps walking around our camp and head towards the tents from where I was in the community tent. That sound immediately put me on edge as I felt the hair on my arms raise and my adrenaline spike. I recall thinking to myself that 2 things are very wrong since the person was not using a light to see and the footsteps were not coming towards me from the tents, rather it was the opposite. Within the 4 seconds it took me to drop my book, get up, and turn the corner of the tent to cast my light on the sleeping tents. The sound had stopped but I saw tracks in dirt before me. Looked like they came from one end of camp, looked into my tent, walked through the sleeping tents and kept going out of camp again. I don't know if I was making too much noise or not by walking around, but the rest of my crew ended up waking up and asking me what was going on from inside their tents. After explaining what I found, they all got up to look at the boot prints in the dirt. They were damn near perfect copies of my own boots except for one small thing. I had a rock stuck in my treads that messed up the symmetry. I was wearing fairly common work boots, except I also happened to wear US size 15 double-wide boots, so there was no way in hell this was one of the other crew members. I don't think any of us slept much that night. Never saw or heard anything more after that night. A light rain removed the tracks a couple days later, but I do remember none of us were willing to step on the prints themselves and choose to step over them like cracks in the sidewalk. I work in a liquor store. I do closing shifts alone for several hours in the shop until 10:30 or so. Pretty much nightly, I'll be in the cooler and hear footsteps in there with me. One time, though, I was counting down my till well after closing and heard a bottle clank somewhere in the store. I walked over and found a bottle of wine standing upright on the floor in the middle of the aisle. I had just done my nightly walkthrough to make sure all shelves were in order, and it definitely wasn't there. I had also just mopped the floor, so it's impossible that I missed it. The tiles were still wet without a single footprint leading up to or away from the bottle. I logged into the video surveillance system and started looking back through the past 30 minutes of footage for that particular aisle. Nothing. At one point that particular camera just blipped out, and when it came back, the bottle was there. I was working in the villages of Malawi, Africa, and came to one community very isolated and remote. The children stopped going to school because these guys were terrorizing them. They were witch doctors, and if caught they'd take the kids into the cemetery and do crazy things. They also terrorized the widows and others in the community. When they told me the story, I thought they might be exaggerating a bit. I didn't ever feel scared when I was in the villages, and since they are cut off from technology, I thought maybe it was just a bit of folklore passed away to create fear. Then one day I was sitting on a banana fibers mat with a widow drinking tea. I couldn't speak the tribal language, so we just smiled and drank together in silence and peace. All of a sudden I heard like this grunting sound. An electric bolt of fear crept down my body. I can't even explain how intense this fear was. It's like I just froze and couldn't even turn around. I just felt evil and darkness around me. Anyway, these witch doctors surrounded us for a while and just grunted and hissed and made these animal noises. We didn't move an inch. We never turned around. They were so close and literally right behind us, and all I could think the entire time was I'd feel a spear in my neck any second. After a while they left, and eventually my transportation arrived. A few other Americans were in other villages and came for my pickup. I remember once I got in the car I couldn't even speak for a while what had happened. My words and stories don't do justice to what I felt that day. I never knew darkness like that existed, but it does.